Hi there. So for those of you who don't know me already, I'm a canine professional and a behaviourist as well, and I have developed the CDD method. And I want to share everything with you from a CDD perspective. And the CDD method stands for Canine Dialogue Dynamics. And it's about how we communicate with our dogs and how we can actually approach teaching our dogs, from a aspect of actually using teaching methods rather than just solely relying on training methods. And the reason that I do this is because not everything can be solved with treats, and in some ways using treats can actually be harmful. And I know that a lot of people that are using treats are really trying the best that they can. They're coming away from punishment and force, and that is absolutely fantastic. And it is so much better than using force and using corrections and, balanced or traditional training. So force-free training, positive reinforcement training is the better option. It's not the only option, and I really don't think that we should just stop there and just think, right, that's it. We've got a better option than force and harm, so therefore we'll just stop looking for other alternatives. And I do think that we should explore and that we should look at what we're doing and analyze it and use critical thinking, and not feel like it's a hopeless course and that is the only way that we can move forwards. It's not. Now, there's nothing wrong with using training methods. I started as a positive reinforcement trainer. It's how I started my career back in 2010, and I do have another video if you want to watch that about what the CDD method is. It's just a brief overview. I have other resources as well if you want to learn more in detail about that too. But the reason I don't like using treats for a lot of things, I actually don't use a lot of treats for most things now. However, depending on the dog and depending on the owner, then treats are necessary. Treats are not a harmful way of teaching our dogs. When it becomes harmful is when we only use treats and we actually use in training and desensitization and conditioning to get a dog to do what we want them to do. Now that becomes problematic. It takes away the dog's voice. It takes away the dog's personality and ways of expressing themselves. So I don't like to just only use this approach, because something that can be really detrimental to our dog's mental well-being and their sense of self, because that's important. So I don't want to just dictate to my dog what I want them to do. I don't want them to sit because I want them to sit. I don't want them to lie down because I told them to lie down. I want them to be able to have their own choices and have the ability to make those decisions, and to know that that's okay and that's celebrated, and their personality is celebrated and it's embraced. We're not trying to change who our dog is, even if that means that our dog isn't a social butterfly. We don't try to make them into a social butterfly. We don't try to make them something they're not, even if they've got breed traits that are dictating their personality. That is a part of who your dog is. And so I don't strive to change who your dog is. I don't want to change who your dog is, and I don't want you to want to change who your dog is. And I think that's why the first thing is why it's so important to do our breed research, to make sure that we are choosing the right breed for us, for our personality, for our lifestyle, to look at the kind of things like, if you wanted a guardian breed, are you the type of person that wants your house guarded? Because a lot of people don't want that. And if you don't want your house to be guarded and you don't want that kind of reactivity, then you really need to reassess why you want a guardian breed, and if that's actually the right fit for you. Because there are so many dogs. There's so many dogs that I would want because they look amazing and they've got funny characteristics and they just suit my personality. But the realism of their breed traits, I know that I wouldn't be able to enjoy that breed as much. I know that it would become problematic for my lifestyle in order to have that. So it depends on, it's much more than just wanting a dog because they're funny or they're cute or they're sweet. We need to know that their breed temperaments, their typical breed temperaments are going to match up with ours. And I think that's really important. Now, it doesn't mean that if you have got a dog that is, let's say you do have a guardian breed and they are struggling with reactivity, that doesn't mean we just go, well, just let them get on with it. That's all fine. That's what they're supposed to do. Now, if they're acting in a dysfunctional way, if they are acting in a way that is actually causing them stress, then we would want to sort that out, because that's dysfunctional. So if they are reacting because they're fearful and they are reacting because they are finding everything really hard and too much to cope with, then there's lots that we can do to help your dog. and the CDD method supports that. But what it doesn't support is if you've got a garden breed who is happily just doing what they're supposed to do, or you've got a herding breed and they're doing what they're supposed to do, or you've got a hunting breed and they're doing what they're supposed to do, that we don't try to change it. We can, rein it in. We can help them with guidance so that they are doing it in a more controlled way, where they're not completely out of control, just causing havoc everywhere and putting them and others in danger. But we can't change it, and I wouldn't want to try or attempt to do that through treats or otherwise. So it's more of a case of really celebrating who the dog is at their core. Their personality is massive. It's something that we need to really hone in on. It's so important that we match what we do to suit your dog's personality, and I think that's something that's overlooked. I think that we do use blanket terms in a lot of ways in training. We go, well, any dog can recall for this, any dog can play this game, any dog can loose lead walk, any dog can do these things as long as we train in the right way. And I don't agree that's always the best way. I think we need to look at, well, who is this dog that we're working with, the dog in front of us? What method, what way of working is going to actually benefit them as an individual and the owner as well. I mean, that's important. We can't rule out, this got to be people-centric as well as dog-centric. They matter, and it's got to be a two-way dynamic. So it's just more of a case of making sure that we're doing the best that we can do to enhance the relationship between dog and human, and doing it in a way where it's not dictating which one of them gets to express their personality. So when we're using treats, when we're conditioning a dog, the reason that I don't like to just use it all the time is because if you're conditioned, and you're so heavily conditioned to behave in a certain way, to perform, to not do something or to do something, you're not actually thinking for yourself. And this happens, and it applies to people as well. Like, think of a time we've conditioned ourselves to do something, or we've been conditioned to do something. Now, sometimes it's necessary. I'm not anti-conditioning, I'm not anti-training. It is necessary for some things. It's part of a natural learning process as well. But when we hone in and we're just taking training, we're just taking conditioning, and that's all we're focusing on, it's just like that is the tunnel vision that we're going to go through, then it becomes a problem. And then we wouldn't be able to think for ourselves if we were if the only way that we were taught was through training and conditioning, and we weren't taught anything with autonomy and self-awareness and a sense of agency, then we would just be following orders all the time. We'd look at the person that's been training us to, what can I do next? Tell me, give me instructions, because I've been so conditioned in this way that I don't have my own thoughts anymore. I have their instructions. So it's a way of control, I think, is the best way of doing it. Whether it's intentionally controlling or not, it is a way of control. It is a way of manipulating and coercing our dogs to do something, even if you're not luring. I mean, luring definitely is coercive. Sometimes it's necessary. If you've got a dog that, I don't know, is struggling so much to come away from something, you might need to lure them to get out of a sticky situation, to prevent something from escalating when it didn't need to. That's not going to harm your dog. But if you're relying on luring, if you're relying on conditioning, if you're relying on training for everything that you teach, then it isn't going to be benefiting the dog in the best way possible. And I had to evaluate this when I came to that realization. That's why I changed a lot of how I did things. I changed a lot of how I trained. I had to swallow some humble pie and realize that actually the way I was helping dogs wasn't actually helping the root cause. In some cases it was helping dogs in the perfect way with positive reinforcement, and they were fine, and there was a great balance between communication and the owner. But in a lot of ways, with a lot of clients, it just didn't work, and it didn't help them, particularly those who were struggling with reactivity. So it's more of a case of giving them that sense of self, and making sure that we're not dictating through the use of training and through the use of rewards, and we are actually communicating in a way that they can still understand, but then it's not overtaking their ability to be themselves and think and make choices. For example, I don't need a dog to lie down or sit, or if I want a dog to wait for me, they don't need to be in a a perfect position. They don't need to be sitting or lying or being rigid. You know, my dogs, if I ask them to wait for me, I'll just say, "I'll wait for me by the gate," and they'll hover and, you know, stroll around and wait for me by the gate, but they're still moving and sniffing and being a dog, you know. So that's my version of a wait. And for another dog, it might look completely different. It just depends on the context, and it depends on the dog's preference to how they want to wait. As long as they're waiting and they're not putting themselves in danger or others in danger, that is the most important aspect of that. So we're looking at a way of communicating in a way that makes sense to the dog. They can understand what we're saying, and so we're not going to overcomplicate the words. We're not going to have full-blown complex conversation but we are going to use more simple sentences and structure it in a way where a dog can actually think, use their brain, and actually have that sense of agency about them as well. So it's a really fun way of bonding with your dog. It's a fun way for people to raise their puppies. I've had dog parents who have been raising their puppies just through the CDD approach. They haven't used any form of training at all. But you can, and that's the beauty of it, is that it's dynamic. You can use different ways of doing this, as long as it's all force-free, as long as it has the principles involved with CDD, which you can find through our other resources. But yeah, that's kind of that's the whole of it, really. I mean, there's so many, I could talk for hours about this, but I probably should keep this shorter on YouTube. But yeah, please do, if you do have any questions, put them in the comments, private message me, join the groups. You know, I've got websites as well if you want to work with me. That's all there available for you. You know, this is tailored and customized to your dog, but it's also tailored and customized to you, and particularly if you're a canine professional. You know, we want this to grow, so please do get in touch. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If there is something that didn't quite make sense, or you want to explore further, I'm open for discussion. I really do think open discussion is the only way forward, not shutting down you know, things. If you don't agree or you struggle with certain aspects of it, then, you know, we want to talk those things over and have those discussions. I think that's important. It's how we grow and it's how we learn. So thanks for watching, and I will be making more in the future. So watch this space.